What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Sports Hub. If you're new here, my name is Brian. I am the host of this podcast. And today's topic is a little shocking to be talking about it this soon. Tua Tagovailoa, a 26-year-old, so young franchise quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, his playing career is now in question due to his latest injury. Now, I'm going to go over a little bit more in depth of the injury history he's had. But this past Thursday, he had his technically third diagnosed concussion. A lot of fans suspect it was his fourth major concussion in 3 years. And now it's really put up the question, should he continue to play and risk his life after football? Or should he decide to retire and focus on his family, which he has 2 young kids and a young wife? So that is the topic today. Still kind of shocks me to even read this title, but I'm excited to jump into it. Obviously, it's not a happy-go-lucky topic like the last few have been, but it is a very interesting, debatable one that is the hot question right now in football. So I'll be sending the intro. I'll join you right back, and we can jump right into the topic. All right, guys, so like I said, this episode is touching on the most debated question right now in the NFL, which is, should Tua Tagovailoa retire from the NFL indefinitely? And this is honestly a very heavy question. And for that, I want to give you guys some background information before I give you my opinion so that you guys can form your own opinion on this topic. So I'm going to start back 5 years ago, November 2019. Tua Tagovailoa and the Alabama Crimson Tide traveled down to Mississippi, or over to Mississippi, to face the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Alabama is ranked, they're 5, they're 8-1 right now as a record. They're ranked 5th overall in the nation, battling to try and get that 4th spot or in the top 4 for the playoffs. Now, for whatever reason, many suspect it was because Tua was just coming off an ankle injury, but for whatever reason, Saban decided to keep Tua in the entire first half. And coming close to halftime, about 2.5 minutes away from the break, Tua's rolling left during a play, is being chased down by 2 defenders from the Bulldogs, and as he throws the ball away, he gets tackled. Both defenders land on top, and Tua would just stay down. Both defenders get up. Tua's down, no helmet. Many say he was screaming in pain. Turns out he had to be carted off, and he was later diagnosed with a dislocated right hip and a fracture to his posterior wall, also on the right hip. On top of that, to make matters worse, he also ended up having a bloody nose, not broken, but just bloody, which just is just another kind of like a cherry on top, if you will. It's just not really a nice add-on. Either way, his career was done, his college career was done, and many suspected his NFL year or his NFL career was done. But Tua, with hard work, got back, he bounced back, and ended up being the 5th overall pick to the Miami Dolphins, and sat back his first year, continued to heal the hip, continued to learn the playbook, or started learning the playbook, and went on. 2 years, perfectly fine, no injuries, no major injuries at least. Obviously, with NFL, you get little injuries like sprained ankles or broken fingers or maybe a cracked rib or so, which is fine. I mean, that's just typical football. You get beat up, that's what happens. But flashing forward up to 2022, this is September 2022, week 3 of Tua's second year as a starter. And Dolphins are facing the Bills in Miami. Tua's rolling out in his own territory, trying to find Waddle, ends up completing the pass, but is hit late by Matt Milano, a Bills linebacker, and ends up slamming his head on the back of the ground. Kind of comes up a little slow, a little wobbly, but finally kind of gets up to his feet, and as he's trying to jog back to the huddle, ends up falling over onto his knees, gets back up, tries to run again, and ends up falling into his linemen who catch him, which is where this photo comes from. This really was concerning because, I mean, you don't usually like to see people get hit and then all of a sudden come up and stumble back to the huddle. So the Dolphins pulled him out. They evaluated him, ended up ruling him out for the game with a concussion. Now, he was cleared later that week to play in week 4. Now, remember, this is week 3. The very next week, he's cleared to play against the Bengals in Cincinnati. Well, about the second quarter, Tua's running, trying to go towards, he's about midfield, trying to run out, extend the play, being chased by a defensive lineman, 300-pound defensive lineman, mind you. And as he's running, before he can even get a chance to throw the ball, the lineman grabs him by the hips, turns around, and throws them. I mean, not intentionally throwing him, but just tries to tackle him. Ends up going around, slingshotting him into the ground. Tua bangs his head and immediately goes into the fencing position, which is not a good sign. So the fencing position is basically a sign that a player or person has gone into or has become unconscious. Basically, their body stiffens, their arms kind of do like weird, I mean, their fingers kind of go in like weird ways, but everything just stiffens and extends. And then just kind of, whenever they snap back, they kind of relax. Well, obviously, he's on the ground. He's in this fencing position. The staff run immediately out to him. Right away, they make sure he's first off good and healthy. Obviously, we've learned stuff later that year with DeMar. They obviously are checking to make sure he's breathing, that everything's fine. Then they go right away to take off the mask. They literally physically unscrew the face mask from the helmet and make sure that he is conscious. He does become conscious, but they do put him on the stretcher. They don't let him walk off, and they end up driving him out to the hospital where he is diagnosed with his second concussion in 2 weeks. So this is back-to-back weeks with a concussion. So now he's out for multiple weeks, and everything is fine as he's starting to come back. Then week 16 rolls around. Tua, trying to extend the play again, runs out of the pocket, escapes the pocket, goes to throw to the tight end, makes the completion. The tight end gets like 6 yards. But in the process, Tua, as he's releasing the ball, is tackled from behind by a Packers defender. And as he falls, ends up getting twisted around, slams his head once again, just like the first two. Back of his head hits the ground, and everyone's kind of like, oh no, this is going to happen again. He's out again with a concussion. But there was a difference. This time, he gets up. He gets out for the remainder of the half. He gets checked on. Hey, are you okay? Is everything fine? And ends up getting cleared by the staff, by the medical staff, to go out and continue playing. So he returns. Now, in the first half, Tua looked really good. He looked like a normal QB. He looked like a healthy QB, was making the reads, had an 84-yard touchdown pass, was doing everything, was keeping the ball safe, wasn't turning it over. All of a sudden, he comes out of half after being checked for concussion and ends up looking like a completely different player, almost like a rookie out there. He can't make reads, ends up throwing 3 interceptions, and all of this combined with losing the game that they were up by 7 points. The Dolphins were up by 7 at home and ended up losing the game after halftime. All of this combined really had fans speculating and assuming that Tua had his third undiagnosed concussion in the Packers game. So now with all this head injury, they go into the offseason, and Tua has a talk with his family. He discusses with his family, hey, what should I do? Should I retire? Because this is a hot topic now. 3 head injuries in 13 weeks. Obviously, there's going to be a talk of should he continue playing? Is he healthy enough? Is he at risk? Is he at too much risk to play? And so he goes on and he talks to his family, and his family and him finally decide, yes, I'm going to continue playing, but I'm going to try and make the strides to prepare myself for contact more. That way he can kind of do an extra padding. So he decides to go in. He talks to the Dolphins. The Dolphins say, hey, how about you decide to add weight? So he put on weight. It's extra padding, and that way when you get tackled, it won't be as rough of a jarring or as rough of a hit that you're absorbing. So he says, great, I'll add weight. Now Tua also decides on his own to do jiu-jitsu classes, jiu-jitsu training. And with this jiu-jitsu training, he learns to absorb contact. He learns how to roll safely after getting hit. And this is all here just to try and prevent as much injury as possible to his head. And so he adds 13 pounds. He goes from 225 to about 238. He learns all this jiu-jitsu training, heads into the 2023 season, full steam. He has all of his weapons. Everyone's healthy, and ends up balling out. I mean, he leads the league in passing yards with 4,624 yards. He has a 69% completion percentage, 29 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. He does end up getting sacked a career-high 29 times, but plays every single game of the season. So he got sacked 8 more times than any other time in his career. Any other year in his career, he got sacked 8 more times in this 2023 season and still played all 17 games. With that performance and with all of his other healthy performances combined, the Dolphins decided to extend him, gave him a 4-year, $212.1 million extension that's in effect once the 2025 season kicks off. So now everyone's excited. Tua is healthy. He was able to get through a whole season, play every single game, and not have an injury, not have a concussion. Maybe it's truly behind him. Maybe it was just a fluke year. So he goes in the offseason and he decides with the Dolphins, hey, why don't you lose a little bit of weight, become more agile so you can slip past these tacklers? That way you're not taking as many sacks, but continue your jujitsu training so that you can still absorb that contact and learn how to roll safely. So Tua's like, absolutely, I agree with you. Goes out there and ends up dropping 13 pounds. So he drops from 238 pounds all the way down to 225. Now Tua is agile. He's already learned how to do jujitsu. He knows how to slide now. Everything looks perfect for him to just break out and have even a better year than his 2023 and have a healthier year than his 2023 and 2022. But week 2 rolls around, Thursday night. This was last week. And sadly, Tua goes in. It's a game where the Dolphins are losing 21 points. They're losing by 21. There is a chance to come back. There's 5 minutes left in the third quarter. There's a chance to come back. They're in the red zone. It's 4th and 4, and they decide to go for it. So Tua hikes it. He tries to make a play. He just runs straight up the middle to get the first down. Ends up getting it, but right as he was coming up to the first down, he notices a Bills player is coming at him. So he wants to get the first down. It's the competitive nature in any athlete. He dives head first, ends up hitting the player, and the player just so happened to be Damar Hamlin. Ends up hitting the player's arm. His head kind of jerks sideways, and Tua ends up going down, completely unconscious, goes in the fencing position, very reminiscent of what we saw in week 4 of 2022 at the Bengals game. The only difference is that Tua was able to regain consciousness and actually walk himself off the field. So this was the last play we just saw of Tua. This is the play that has reignited this retirement talk. And now players are giving their inputs. Regular players are giving their inputs. Analysts are giving their inputs. Fans are giving their inputs. Veteran players, like past players, are giving their inputs. And everyone's just jumbled. They don't know which way to lean. Because this is a young player who has a whole career ahead of him. But at the same time, he has a whole life ahead of him. He has 2 young children, a daughter and a son, and he has a young wife, all of which he deserves to see past his football career. But the risk of going back out there, which he was already at a risk 2 years ago when he had 3, now you had a 4th concussion, and he's at even higher of a risk of losing that life after football. And for that reason, my opinion on this is that he should just retire. I believe 100% Tua should just retire, and that's what a lot of the public is agreeing with. They're all saying he should retire. But I do believe that a lot of fans aren't taking into account just how much football has meant to Tua. And this is not to say he cares about football more than his family. I truly don't know his opinion. But just as an NFL player, when you look at them, they work their entire life. They work 24, 23, 22 years to get to the NFL. And when they finally get there, it's kind of a surreal moment. And then they just want to take it over, just like they did with college and all. They want to get out there and they finally make their dream. And to not be able to choose to step away, instead you're forced because of injury, it's a whole different decision. If Tua was willingly like, I just don't love the game as much anymore, I will step away, I think it makes it a lot easier. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just, all these injuries are really kind of not helping me love this game anymore. I'm just going to step away and focus on family. But considering he's still there, he still loves the game, and it's just been this series of unlucky happenstances, unlucky injuries that have accumulated over the last 3 years, his arm's kind of being twisted into saying you should probably retire. So a little more backstory into money-wise, because I know some people probably have questions about money. With the new contract, Tua is guaranteed, he had a $43 million signing bonus, and he's guaranteed $124 million. I think it's $167 million overall. $167 overall, 43 with signing bonus, the rest is through salary. If Tua has to medically retire, so if he gets checked out and they say, nope, you are not allowed to play anymore, you have to retire because you have a health risk, like this is an injury risk, this is serious, you cannot play anymore. He is fully guaranteed the $43 million signing bonus and the rest of the $124 million, giving him a total of $167 million he walks away with if he has to medically retire. However, if he does not have to medically retire and he's cleared, he walks away with $43 million in signing bonus, the $1.1 million salary he has this year, and the other $124 million is decided on by the Dolphins. Now, what I think the Dolphins will give it to him regardless, or at least a portion of it regardless, because obviously, even if he's cleared to play, his reason will be he doesn't want to play because of risk of injury. Now, all of that money stuff is just for people that, a lot of people argue, hey, he should stay and make his money. But when I made this decision and when I looked at this question and I made the decision that he should probably retire, I chose the opinion that he should probably retire. I'm not thinking money. I'm thinking as a life after football. There is a short window. If you're lucky, you play 10 years in the league. 10 years of an 80-year life is really small if you really look at it comparatively. And for Tua to be there and experience that life after football, he's played football his entire life. He got to play 4 or 5 years in the league. I think the smart decision and the decision that he should be thinking is, I've been able to live out my dream. Whether it was what I predicted or not, I was able to reach my dream and live it out for a few years. How about I just take my money and go enjoy my life? Maybe I come back as a coach. Maybe I come back as the Dolphins quarterback coach. But for now, I think it's just smarter for him to step away, enjoy life, watch his kids grow up, be able to be there for them mentally and not just be a person sitting there not really understanding anything. Because that's really what the risk is. If you go back out there and get injured, he could either die on the field. I mean, in all seriousness, there is a risk of him possibly dying on the field from it. Or he could just get a serious case of another illness that we may not even know of. One of them could be CTE, another one could be something we've never even heard of. And now he's not there mentally. He's there physically for his children, but not there mentally for his children. And that's even worse for his family. So I think with all that played into perspective and everything kind of weighed around, my personal opinion is he should just retire. You made your money, you provided for your family, now be there for your family. You've provided the money, now be there as a dad, as a human, as a person that they can relate to, that they can talk to back and forth and be there for him. For that reason, I think he should just retire. But that's what the weight is. I mean, I'm just trying to give you guys enough perspective onto his side. Obviously, I'm not an athlete. I don't play professional. I don't even play collegiate sports. But just hearing what I've heard from previous players like Ryan Clark and Shannon Sharp and Des Bryant and other people that have tweeted or talked about it on Get Up and other talk shows, that's what I'm understanding. It's that love of the game versus the actual life after football. And one last thing just to add real quick, I've also heard this a lot. When players retire, whether it's medically or not medically, they tend to not know what to do anymore because they've dedicated over half their life at that time to one sport. They kind of just get in this depression mode sometimes. Not all of them, but some of them do, because they just don't know what to do anymore. They don't have a purpose. They've fulfilled their purpose, at least in their minds. So I think that's another thing that weighs in his head. But to wrap up, like I said, this is a little bit of a rant and a tangent. I do just think that Tua should retire, and I think he should just spend the time with his kids and be involved in football in another way, like a coach or like a team manager, if you will. I don't know. Maybe the Dolphins can create a position for him. But for that reason, I think it's better for the Dolphins. I think it's better for Tua, and I think it's better for Tua's family if he just steps away and is there for them. So that's all for me today. Thank you guys for tuning in. This was, like I said, a little bit of a heavier topic, but I hope now you guys know enough information just to make your own opinion about it. You don't have to agree with me. That's the beauty of this sport, is that all these topics, you can just have your own opinion, and it can be right as long as you can defend it properly. So thank you guys again. And remember, this is Brian Sports Hub, your source for sports.